Imagine stepping into a time machine. But, like, the time machine is actually a 14,000 square foot abandoned industrial factory packed with a 15-layer lasagna and vintage streetcars.
Which is quite the visual, honestly.
Right. But it's real. And today is Sunday, May 17th, 2026. And right now, as you listen to this, a massive historic building in Akron, Ohio, is locking its doors for the final time.
Yeah, it's definitely the end of an era today.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Because today we are taking a deep dive into a huge stack of architectural analyses, historical records, and financial reports to explore the life and death of the Spaghetti Warehouse franchise.
And, it's important to note that our mission with this deep dive isn't just to talk about some old Italian chain restaurant.
No, not at all. We want to understand the massive 50-year life cycle of experiential dining or entertainment, the shifting values of urban real estate, and really how our society processes nostalgia.
What's fascinating here is that the closure in Akron today is a definitive case study in the total collapse of that entertainment business model that, it completely dominated post-industrial Rust Belt cities.
Yeah, it was everywhere. But before we can understand why that Akron location failed today, we have to kind of look back, right, to see how this incredibly bizarre, maximalist hospitality formula was even invented.
Exactly. And to do that, you have to look at Dallas in 1972.
Right, which, how did this start? Because the guy who started it wasn't even really a restaurant guy, was he?
No, not at all. So Robert Hawk, he was a VP at Pier 1 Imports.
Wait, the furniture and decor store?
Yeah, the home goods store. So his whole thing was global sourcing logistics. And he essentially used that exact same logistics network to open the first spaghetti warehouse inside this massive abandoned pillow factory in Dallas.
A pillow factory, okay. But how does that even work financially? Like, how do you pay the heating bill for a giant warehouse by selling cheap pasta?
Well, it's a very specific model. High volume, very low margin, and cheap Italian comfort food.
Oh, okay. The famous lasagna.
Right. Chef Victor Petta Jr.'s patented 3-day, 15-layer lasagna. That cheap food subsidized these absolutely enormous real estate footprints.
Oh, wow. And then they just packed those huge footprints with, like, crazy artifacts because the spatial hierarchy of the whole dining room was centered around a literal, authentic, vintage trolley car parked right in the middle.
Exactly. And by doing that, they successfully commodified local civic transit history.
Which is brilliant, but also kind of weird. Like, wait, were these early restaurants essentially just the 1970s version of an Instagram trap? Creating this manufactured sensory overload of stained glass and, was it Stephen F. Austin's bed frame? Just to distract from the cheap pasta?
I see why you'd say that, but it wasn't just aesthetic distraction. It was actually this highly lucrative corporate solution for digesting abandoned urban decay. And it gave families a really immersive event at the same time.
Right, because by the 1990s, that Dallas formula of turning decay into dollars was so potent that struggling municipalities literally viewed the brand as a silver bullet for urban revitalization.
Oh, absolutely. City planners were desperate for this exact kind of thing.
And that leads us straight into the belly of the Akron rubber industry.
Yes. So the Akron site, which is formerly known as B.F. Goodrich Building 33, it actually started back in 1886 as the world's largest cigar factory.
Wait, really? A cigar factory?
Yeah. Before it became the economic lifeblood of the rubber capital of the world, it was all cigars. But then, obviously, the rubber industry declined, the buildings empty out.
And in 1992, Spaghetti Warehouse swoops in.
Exactly. They completely transformed this place, which they actually called a downtown diamond in the rough.
They went all out. They brought in a 20-foot chandelier from the Dunes Casino in Vegas.
Yep, the Vegas chandelier.
Vintage rubber signs everywhere, and of course, a replica Akron Street Railway trolley right in the dining room.
And it worked. At its peak, that 425-seat venue was pulling in $3 million annually.
Which is massive for that era.
Oh, completely. It acted as this vital third place for the community. A highly accessible stage for prom dates and family traditions.
It's like they use a massive bowl of spaghetti as a localized defibrillator to shock a dead industrial block back to life.
That's actually a great way to put it. Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, it succeeded exactly as city planners hoped. It kept that historic 1886 structure viable while other Rust Belt sites just totally succumbed to abandonment.
Right. But, running a 14,000 to 45,000 square foot architectural defibrillator requires massive continuous foot traffic.
Yes, and that is the fatal flaw in the model.
Because when the mechanics of the American workday shifted, the roof literally and figuratively caved in. I mean, let's look at the financial bleed in Akron.
It's pretty stark. They went from that $3 million peak down to $1.8 million right before the pandemic.
And then the remote work shift just killed it.
Completely. It crashed to an unsustainable $1.1 million by 2025 and 2026. The evaporation of those remote working office commuters was devastating.
Because you don't have the lunch rush anymore. I know the owner, Michael Kim, he realized menu tweaks like adding pizza couldn't fix it.
Right. You can't fix a lack of humans in the downtown area just by serving pizza.
Exactly. But Akron was just a slow financial bleed. The catastrophe of the Columbus flagship location was, well, it was literal.
Oh, Columbus was a tragedy. This was a 45,000 square foot ice house built in 1891. It sat 800 people and generated the highest sales in the entire franchise.
800 people, that's practically an arena.
It was huge, but in 2022, the roof literally collapsed.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and that led to the total demolition of the building to make way for developer Skip Weiler's new 15-story mixed-use tower.
Wow. But wait, isn't it the ultimate irony that a restaurant brand literally built on saving history eventually became a victim to modern development? Like the Columbus site being traded in for 21st century glass and steel.
It is incredibly ironic.
Oh.
Especially because the company has a really mixed track record with preservation. Back in 1996, in Little Rock, they actually destroyed a historic house just to build surface parking for their nostalgic restaurant.
Oh, you have to be kidding. They tore down a historic house for parking.
Yep. But on a positive note, Columbus did actually manage to save its authentic San Francisco trolley from the rubble.
Right, the Rickenbacker Woods Foundation rescued it, right.
They did. And they didn't just save it to be corporate kitsch. They rescued it to honor Granville T. Woods, who is known as the Black Edison.
Ah, because he invented systems for the trolleys.
Exactly. So it shifted the artifact from this quirky restaurant decor into genuine historical education.
Which is amazing, but it still leaves the corporate owners in a really tough spot because these massive historic warehouses are either failing financially, like in Akron, or physically collapsing, like in Columbus.
Right, they're pushed into a corner. How do you modernize a brand whose entire identity is rooted in cavernous, nostalgic clutter?
Well, they tried in Columbus, and it sounds like a disaster. They relocated to a quote-unquote more efficient footprint on High Street.
And how did that go over with the customers?
Horribly. It's this new single-room layout that is overwhelmingly loud. They have to rely on pre-bagged plastic silverware now, and it completely stripped the brand of its charm.
This raises an important question, right? If the primary value proposition of your brand is the chaotic architecture of the past, does the food alone even matter?
I mean, consumer reviews of that Columbus modernization basically scream no. Stripping away the history completely alienates their core demographic.
And we've seen this broader Midwestern attrition for a while now. The Cleveland Flats location died back in 2011.
Oh, yeah, and perfectly mirroring the 2001 death of the New York Spaghetti House, which was 74 years old.
Right. Both of those were squeezed by parking woes and shifting demographics. The whole national footprint has shrunk from over 30 spots down to just Dayton, Toledo, that struggling Columbus spot, and
a single to-go concept in Texas, which is just the ultimate defeat for a place known for its atmosphere.
Totally.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember the developer, Skip Weiler, doing the 15-story tower in Columbus?
Yeah, the mixed-use building.
He actually suggested sticking a new spaghetti warehouse on the ground floor of that new tower. It's this bizarre attempt to loop the legacy back to its grave.
That is wild.
Yeah.
But it really shows the friction of modernization and trying to keep the vibe alive in a sterile new build.
Yeah, which brings us to today. Because as the Akron location closes, the historic B.F. Goodrich space is reverting from a public third place back to a private corporate campus for the GPD Group engineering firm.
So the public is totally losing access to that space.
Completely. And the fate of the replica trolley and that Vegas chandelier, ambiguously silent, they'll likely just be quietly liquidated.
Just like Stephen F. Austin's bed frame from Dallas.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? Well, for you listening, it means that while the public fantasized about honoring the old rubber plants with, like, ancient Persian wind catchers or chimney swift towers or giant chimes by artist P.R. Miller,
Corporate reality went out.
it did. The era of commodifying decay into entertainment is officially dead.
And that leaves us with one final puzzle for you to mull over. If the late 20th century took the gritty, abandoned infrastructure of the Industrial Revolution and commodified it into whimsical, nostalgic dining spaces for families, what mundane, obsolete infrastructure of our current digital era will the 22nd century commodify to sell us back our own nostalgia?